got this tweet up. Senate Republicans are livid with Trump. Just now, Senator Rick Wicker remained stoned-faced for about 20 seconds as he walked into lunch, and we asked him for his reaction. Senator Murkowski is crying. She's melting down. She's melting down.
Something is happening inside the Republican Party right now that establishment Republicans clearly were not prepared for. Because over the last few weeks, Donald Trump has stopped pretending he's willing to tolerate people inside the party who keep blocking his agenda while still asking for his endorsement at election time. And now some of the biggest names in Washington are starting to realize they may be next.
How personally disappointed or frustrated are you with the president's decision to endorse Ken Paxton today?
Well, I think you all know my position on this issue. I've made it very clear for months now. And Senator Cornyn is a principled conservative. He is a very effective senator for the state of Texas. But none of us control what the president does. He made his decision about that. That doesn't change the way I feel. I am certainly supportive of, will continue to be supportive of Senator Cornyn and his reelection.
And honestly, you could see the frustration written all over John Thune's face because this was supposed to be controlled. The establishment wanted John Cornyn. Trump chose Ken Paxton instead. And now Republicans who spent years assuming they were untouchable are suddenly watching their political protection disappear in real time.
We won all races last night, every one of them. And we have a great candidate, I believe, in Texas. And I believe the Texas candidate, who's Ken Paxton, I think he'll win. I think probably he'll win very substantially. And I think he'll go on to defeat a very defective candidate, a candidate that believes in 6 genders, and he takes hits at Jesus Christ, and he's wearing a mask 6 months ago, whereas anybody wearing a mask 6 months ago doesn't get it. And he's a vegan. He's a vegan in Texas, and you can't get elected as a vegan in Texas.
Did you talk to Senate leadership on the Republican side about endorsing against an incumbent?
I did. They'll be all right with it. They want to win. I know how to win.
Are you worried about voter?
Some of them don't know how to win. I know how to win. I think I've proven that, haven't I?
That clip right there tells you exactly where Trump's head is right now. He does not care about protecting careers inside Washington anymore. He cares about loyalty and results. And from Trump's perspective, if Republicans are not helping push his agenda forward, then they are dead weight politically.
New intent, a new bill from Utah Senator Mike Lee could change federal elections all across the country.
The Save America Act would require IDs for and proof of citizenship for voters. So how could that impact voters? Christian Sita spoke to former Governor Gary Herbert and political expert Jason Perry to find out. He's live tonight from a ballot box in Salt Lake County. So Christian, what did you find?
Heidi Mark, while Congress can regulate elections, the former Utah governor feels like states should have that control. Senator Mike Lee defended the Save America Act, writing that it makes no sense to require ID for everyday activities but not to vote. We reached out to Senator Lee for an interview but did not hear back. To understand how the bill would change the voting process, we spoke with Jason Perry, director of the Inkley Institute of Politics.
There are really 2 checkpoints to vote. The first one is registering, and this act right here is going to require some proof of citizenship. And the second part is the voting itself, which is going to require voter ID.
Elections are run by the states, so do you think this bill interferes with states' rights to manage their own elections?
So I think states ought to be left to their own devices to do the voting and how they want to do it. Certainly within the law.
Former Utah Governor Gary Herbert says cases of non-citizens voting are extremely rare.
We're finding out that the number is really very small.
Perry says Congress does have some authority over elections, but acknowledges the concern.
Under the Constitution, states do run elections, but Congress does have the right to regulate some aspect, their time, place, manner.
And now the real fear spreading across Washington is that this may only be the beginning. Because once Trump starts publicly signaling that endorsements can disappear, support can disappear, and protection can disappear, suddenly every Republican who built their career around the MAGA movement has to ask themselves one brutal question. If Trump decides you're no longer useful to the agenda, are you politically finished next?
For weeks, the American people have asked for, and the Senate has largely ignored, the drumbeat to pass the Save America Act. President Trump is right in saying that nothing should be signed into law until we have voter ID. And yet RINOs and Democrats think that President Trump won't veto legislation to make sure that we get voter ID passed. My message to them is simple. You've underestimated President Trump before, and you don't understand how important election integrity is to this president and our nation. It's time for the Senate to stop making excuses and pass voter ID.
Senator, just quickly, do you have any reaction to Massie's loss? No?
Just living his best life. But President Trump could end up being upset. And, I'll have to take that. He was upset with me over the Epstein files. Right. I was one of the 4 Republicans who signed my name to that. And, there were some consequences legislatively that followed. But I'm still working to deliver.
Her husband votes against me all the time. Can you imagine? I don't know what's with him. You better ask him what's with him. Her husband, she's married to a certain congressman. He votes against, he likes voting against Trump. You know what happens with that? It doesn't work out well. I don't know why he does. But.
And now the real fear spreading across Washington is that this may only be the beginning. Because once Trump starts publicly signaling that endorsements can disappear, support can disappear, and protection can disappear, suddenly every Republican who built their political career around the MAGA movement has to ask themselves one brutal question. If Trump decides you are no longer useful to the agenda, are you politically finished next? And honestly, that fear is starting to become visible on camera. You can hear it in the awkward answers. You can see it in the forced smiles. You can feel it in the silence every time reporters start asking questions about loyalty, endorsements, or who may be getting pushed out next. Because for years, there were a lot of Republicans in Washington who believed they could walk a very careful line. Support Trump publicly when it helped politically, distance themselves when things became controversial, and still expect the MAGA base to carry them across the finish line every election cycle. But now that strategy appears to be collapsing in real time because Trump is making it crystal clear that if he feels like someone is standing in the way of his agenda, he is willing to publicly embarrass them, publicly replace them, or publicly support somebody else entirely. And the reason this is becoming such a massive story is because these Republican politicians understand something that the media still struggles to fully grasp. Trump's endorsement is no longer just a nice political bonus. In many Republican districts, it is the entire oxygen supply. There are politicians whose entire careers were built on the back of Trump rallies, Trump supporters, Trump fundraising, and Trump momentum, which means once the president starts openly questioning your loyalty, suddenly every camera in Washington starts turning toward you, waiting to see if you survive the backlash. And that is why so many of these clips feel tense right now. People are not just reacting to endorsements, they are reacting to political survival. Because once voters start believing that a politician is no longer aligned with Trump's movement, things can spiral unbelievably fast. Donations slow down, media pressure increases, primary challengers suddenly appear out of nowhere, and the internet starts turning every awkward clip into another viral moment. Just look at how quickly the conversation shifted around Thomas Massie. 1 minute he is a respected conservative voice. The next minute people are openly debating whether he politically isolated himself from the movement that helped elevate him in the first place. And that pressure is now spreading throughout the Republican Party like wildfire because politicians are watching these moments happen publicly and realizing there may not be any safe middle ground left anymore. Either you are fully aligned with the agenda or you risk being labeled part of the problem. And that creates a level of pressure that most career politicians are not used to handling because Washington traditionally operates through compromise, relationships, and quiet deals behind closed doors. Trump does the opposite. He applies pressure publicly. He embarrasses people publicly. He turns political disagreements into full-blown loyalty tests in front of millions of people online. And whether people love that approach or hate it, the reality is that it changes the behavior of everybody around him. Suddenly, senators who once felt untouchable start sounding nervous in interviews. Reporters start asking sharper questions. Republican strategists start panicking privately about primaries, fundraising, and backlash from the base. Because the real fear here is not just losing an endorsement. The real fear is becoming the next example. Nobody wants to be the next politician standing at a podium pretending everything is fine while social media is exploding with clips of Trump openly questioning whether they should remain in office. And the craziest part is that this pressure campaign appears to still be accelerating. Trump is not signaling that he wants to calm things down. If anything, he appears to be doubling down on the idea that Republicans who do not aggressively push his agenda forward are replaceable. And that message is sending shockwaves through Washington because a lot of people built very comfortable political careers, assuming they could survive by balancing both sides carefully forever. But now the environment is changing. Republican voters are becoming more aggressive, more demanding, and far less patient with politicians they believe are slowing things down. Which means every awkward interview, every hallway clip, every uncomfortable reaction from senators and congressmen suddenly feels much bigger than it used to. Because behind all of this political drama is one giant question hanging over Washington right now. Who is next?